Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Biology with Madhuparna. I am again here with another lecture. Today's lecture topic is pyruvate and its fate and pyruvate to acetyl CoA conversion. So we will be looking at the fates of pyruvate, then further we will discuss about the process by which pyruvate is getting converted into acetyl CoA. Okay. So let's start with fates of pyruvate. So as you can see in this diagram, pyruvate actually have three main fates. So as we discussed in our previous lecture, which was about glycolysis, in which method a glucose molecule is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate via the glycolytic pathway. So from there we are getting to pyruvate. So for the glucose to go to further metabolism pathways, which is next pathway, which is citric acid cycle or TCA cycle, we need acetyl CoA, not pyruvate. So now we have to convert this pyruvate into acetyl CoA somehow. So how we will do that? So that reaction by which we can convert the pyruvate into 2-acetyl CoA, that is called as pyruvate decarboxylation reaction, and it is done under aerobic conditions. So it is one of the major fates of the pyruvate, which will further produce 2-acetyl CoA, and that acetyl CoA, that 2-acetyl CoA, it will go to citric acid cycle, and further from there it will generate energy which will help our cellular activities to go on. So this is the first fate of pyruvate. Next we will come to our second fate of pyruvate, that is so now two more fates are remaining. Both of these fates are under the hypoxic or anaerobic conditions. So first we will discuss about the ethanol fermentation. So pyruvate can be converted into ethanol, to ethanol and CO2 via the fermentation to ethanol, which is mainly happen in yeast cell under the hypoxic or anaerobic conditions. So pyruvate will be converted into 2-ethanol plus 1 CO2 molecule under hypoxic or anaerobic condition in the yeast via the ethanol fermentation. And the last fate of pyruvate is formation of lactate from the pyruvate under anaerobic condition. So how? In vigorously contracting muscles, like for example, for the athletes who are running in a 100-meter sprint, so they will face this condition and they will produce a lot of lactose from the pyruvate in the muscle cell. So that is another pathway, and that is actually comes under Cori cycle, so that we will be discussing later on. So it is one of the fates of pyruvate. So fermentation to lactate in vigorously contracting muscle, it also happens in erythrocytes and some cells and in some organism. So these are the three main fates of pyruvate. So now we are done with our fates of pyruvate section. Next we'll be moving into the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl CoA. So if you look into this diagram, this is the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, or in short PDH complex. It basically contains three enzymes, E1, E2, E3, and how these three enzymes convert the pyruvate into our final product acetyl CoA, that we will read step by step. So this is the diagram. If you want this diagram or notes for this particular sector, you can contact me in my mail, which is provided in my bio. So we will start like how it is converted. We'll look into that. So in the first step, pyruvate, which is coming from glycolysis, so that pyruvate will interact with the TPP, which stands for thymine pyrophosphate, which is bound to the E1 enzyme of the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So I told you already that it contains three enzymes, E1, E2, E3. The first enzyme is E1, which is named as pyruvate dehydrogenase. So this enzyme contains a cofactor which is TPP, and it stands for thymine pyrophosphate. So what it will do, it will take the pyruvate. This TPP will interact with the pyruvate and it will form a hydroxyethyl TPP. So now our TPP is converted into TPP, hydroxyethyl TPP. And one CO2 will be released in this reaction. As you can see in my slide, I have rounded off the CO2 which will be released in this reaction. So in this reaction, this TPP will kick off the CO2 from the pyruvate, resulting in the formation of hydroxyethyl TPP. After that, in the next reaction or second reaction, we will go to the second enzyme, which is E2, and name is dihydrolipoyl transacetylase. So E2, it contains another cofactor. So first one, it contains TPP cofactor, and the second one contains lipoic acid as its cofactor. So in which there are two sulfurs, as in the disulfide bond formation. Okay, so which can be readily reduced into the sulfur. So now what will happen, the acetyl group which is attached with the hydroxyethyl TPP, that will be transferred to one of the sulfurs of the lipoic acid, which will form acyl lipolysine. Okay, so now as a final product, we are having one sulfur in the reduced form and another sulfur, it is having one acetyl group attached with it, which we are calling as acyl lipolysine. So now we will go to our third step. In the third step, so now in this reaction, one co-SH or coenzyme A will come to play a part. Very important part actually. So now this coenzyme A will come into the reaction, and what it will do, it will come from the matrix. Okay, so it is usually available in the matrix. So from there, this coenzyme A, it will interact with the acyl lipolysine and it will result in the formation of acetyl CoA. So this coenzyme A will take up the acetyl group from acyl lipolysine and it will form the acetyl CoA, and that acetyl CoA will release back into the matrix. So our mission was to convert the pyruvate into acetyl CoA. So it is now, we have done that, we are successful in that. But here our whole reaction, it will not stop. We have two more steps to complete, because this PDH complex E1, E2, E3, everything we need to regenerate. That is the most important part. And now we will be looking into this sector, that how we can regenerate this E2, E3. As you can see in our previous reaction, which was TPP, it is already regenerated into TPP. When it donates its acyl group to the lipoic acid, then only that TPP is regenerated back into TPP form. We need to regenerate our E2. So how we will do that? So to regenerate our E2, now we will move to our last enzyme, which is E3, and name of the enzyme is dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase. So now 2 hydrogen which is present in the reduced form of acyl lipolysine like SH and SH. So that 2H, it will be transferred to the FAD which is present in the E3 enzyme. So if now those two H2 are transferred to FAD, it will produce FADH2. So now we have successfully regenerated our E2, but again we have a problem. We need to regenerate E3 now. So how we will do that? Let's see. This is our last step of the whole reaction. So let's see how we will do that. So now again we need to regenerate as I told earlier. So we need to regenerate our FAD. For that, luckily in the matrix NAD plus is present. So now this NAD plus will come into rescue to help us to regenerate this FAD. So what this FADH2 will do now? It will transfer its 2 hydrogen to NAD plus and it will form NADH and H plus. So now we have completely successfully, we have regenerated our whole PDH complex. So this was our whole reaction. So now we will come to some important facts which we should know about this reaction, so it will help us to understand in a better way. So first point is, the whole process is also known as pyruvate decarboxylation. As you can see, from pyruvate to, in the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl CoA, one CO2 is going out, so it's a decarboxylation process. The next fact is, it takes place in the mitochondrial matrix. So in our previous lecture we have read that like glycolysis happen in the cytosol, but this reaction, pyruvate to acetyl CoA formation, it takes place in the mitochondrial matrix. Next point is, it is a fine example of substrate channeling reaction. So if if any exam, this kind of questions come like give an example of substrate channeling reaction, you can easily write this like PDH complex reaction. And our last point, as I told you, like example of substrate channeling, I would like to explain you like what is substrate channeling. So substrate channeling, basically it is the passing of the intermediary metabolite product of one enzyme directly to another enzyme or the enzyme's active site without releasing the intermediates into the solution. So basically those intermediates, it will be passed through the enzyme, like one enzyme to another enzyme, and those intermediates will not go into the solution. So it's like a channel between 1, 2 or 3 or more than that enzymes. So that's why this process is named as substrate channeling. So here only I will end my lecture. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you liked my video. Don't forget to leave a comment like how changes you want to see in my future videos and how I can improve myself. Definitely you should leave a comment like that. And if you like my channel, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like and share with your friends. Thank you. See you again in my next video.